Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we have got an exciting video for all of you preparing for UGC NET English exam. We want to help you out by introducing you to 42 important American literature writers. मतलब हम आज 42 important American literature writers देखेंगे जो कि UGC NET English exam के point of view से बहुत ही important writers हैं. So let's get started. So our first important writer is Frederick Douglass. He was a remarkable person with an amazing life story. He wrote a book called Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. It was published in 1845. So Frederick Douglass की एक फेमस बुक है, उसका नाम है नैरेटिव ऑफ द लाइफ ऑफ फ्रेडरिक डगलस एन अमेरिकन स्लेव और ये पब्लिश्ड हुई थी 1845 को. अवर नेक्स्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट राइटर इज हैरियट बीचर स्टोव. शी इज नोन फॉर हर बुक अंकल टॉम्स कैबिन. इट वॉज पब्लिश्ड इन 1852. मतलब वो फेमस थी अंकल टॉम्स कैबिन ये बुक की वजह से एंड वो पब्लिश कब हुई थी 1852. अवर नेक्स्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट राइटर इज हरमन मेलविल. ही रोट अ फेमस बुक कॉल्ड मोबी डिक एंड इट वॉज पब्लिश्ड इन 1851. मतलब we all know that Moby Dick is very famous book and it was written by Herman Melville. His work was a part of a romantic period in American literature. His other works are Billy Bird Cellar, Battle by the Scrivener. ये उनके other important works है. So take a screenshot or write it down. Our next important writer is William Cullen Bryant. So he was a poet actually. He was a poet during the Romantic era. Some of his poems are well known and loved. One of his famous poems is Thanatopsis. So Thanatopsis ये उनकी famous poem है. Our next important writer is Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman, he is known as the father of a free verse poetry. We all know that. Means literature student को ये पता ही है वो free verse poetry के father है Walt Whitman. One of his famous works is called Leaves of a Grass. It was published in 1855. उनकी फेमस बुक का नाम है लीव्स ऑफ अ ग्रास और ये 1855 में पब्लिश हुई थी. Our next important writer is Washington Irving. He wrote interesting short stories like The Legend of a Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle. So इनके ये फेमस वर्क है. Our next important writer is Henry David Thoreau. So his important book is Walden. Our next important writer is Ralph Waldo Emerson. और ये फेमस थे उनके फेमस ऐसे सेल्फ रिलायंस की वजह से. Our next important writer is Edgar Allan Poe. He wrote a spooky and a mysterious story. Some of his famous works include The Raven. The Raven published in 1845 and The Tell Heart. It was published in 1843. His another famous work is The Fall of the House of Usher. Our next important writer is Louisa May Alcott. She wrote the classic novel Little Women. The book is still loved by many readers today. उनकी फेमस बुक थी लिटिल वुमन. और sorry friends, I am forgot to add some one page that about Nathaniel Hawthorne. He is the famous American writer. If you want to write it down, write it down. So Nathaniel Hawthorne, he was a novelist and a short story writer. His book The Scarlet Letter is well known for its theme. And The Scarlet Letter was published in 1850. Our next important writer is James Cooper. James Fenimore Cooper. He wrote exciting historical fiction. One of his popular book is The Last of the Mohicans. The Last of the Mohicans ये उनकी famous book थी. और it was published in 1826. It was published in 1826. Our next important writer is Edith Wharton. She wrote novels about the lives of wealthy Americans. Her novel The Age of Innocence won a Pulitzer Prize. And The Age of Innocence was published in 1920. एडिथ वॉर्टन की जो बुक थी, नॉवेल थी द एज ऑफ इनोसेंस, वो उनको पुलित्जर प्राइज मिला है और इट वॉज पब्लिश्ड इन 1920. Now we'll see 20th century American writers. So next writer is Kate Chopin. Kate Chopin, she wrote a novel called The Awakening, which talks about women's independence. The Awakening जो novel है वो women's independence के बारे में है और it was published in 1899. It was published in 1899. Our next important writer is Henry James. He is an important writer bridging realism and modernism. The Portrait of a Lady is one of his famous works. The Portrait of a Lady was published in 1881. The Portrait of a Lady ये published हुई थी 1881. So our next important writer is Mark Twain. Mark Twain, he was a beloved humorist. People love his books. The Adventure of Tom Sawyer. And it was published in 1876. It was published in 1876. उनकी जो The Adventure of Tom Sawyer थी वो 1876 में published हुई. And Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, it was published in 1884. It was published in 1884. Our next important writer is Jack London. He wrote adventurous novels like The Call of the Wild, and The Call of the Wild is published in 1903, right? Call of the Wild publish हुई थी 1903 में. His another famous novel is White Fang and it was published in 1906. 1906. White Fang 1906. Our next important writer is Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Her story The Yellow Wallpaper, it was published in 1892 and had a big impact on feminist literature. Next is Theodore dresser, and he was a writer known for naturalism. He was a writer known for naturalism. One of his well-known books is Sister Carrie, and this novel is his first novel. It was published in 1900. His another famous book is An American Tragedy. Our next important writer is Stephen Crane. Stephen Crane, he wrote about the Civil War in his novel The Red Badge of Courage. The Red Badge of Courage. It was published in 1895. वो 1895 में published हुई थी. The Red Badge of Courage. Our next important writer is Susan Glaspell. She was a famous playwright and novelist. One of her popular plays is The Trifles. The Trifles is a one-act play, and it was published in 1916. It was published in 1916. So friends, now we'll see contemporary American writers. So first contemporary American writer is Robert Frost. He wrote beautiful poems about nature and rural life. His famous poems are The Road Not Taken, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Mending Wall. Our next important poet is Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound, उनकी famous poem थी The Cantos. Next is William Carroll's, and his important works are Spring and All and Patterson. Next is E. Cummings. I carry your heart with me, and somewhere I have never traveled gladly beyond. These are his important works. Friends, Robert Frost, Ezra Pound, William Carroll Williams, and E. Cummings. These poets had a unique and interesting styles. So our next important writer is John Updike. He is known for his Rabbit series and other great works. Other great work like The Witches of Eastwick. Next important writer is Harper Lee. Harper Lee, she is famous for her novel To Kill a Mockingbird. Next important, Truman Capote. His book In a Cold Blood was a groundbreaking non-fiction novel. His other famous works are Breakfast at Tiffany's, Music of a Chameleon. This Music of a Chameleon is an essay collection. Next important writer is John O'Hara. He made a significant contribution to American fiction. His famous works are Appointment in Samara and Butterfield 8. Next important writer is John Steinbeck. He won a Nobel Prize for his novels like The Grapes of Wrath, and it was published in 1939. The Grapes of Wrath is published in 1939, and Of a Mice and a Men, it was published in 1940. 37. His other important work is East of Eden. Next is Joseph Heller, and his book Catch 22 is a satirical masterpiece. It was published in 1961. Catch 22 ये satirical masterpiece है उनका, and Catch 22 was published in 1961. Next important writer is William S. Burroughs. His important works are Naked Lunch and Junkie. So he is famous for Naked Lunch and Junkie. Next is Jack Kerouac. Jack Kerouac. And his important work is On the Road. On the Road. I want to add another important point that William S. Burroughs and Jack Kerouac, they were key figures of the Beat generation. Beat generation के key figures थे ये दोनों. Now next important writer is Edward Albee. Edward Albee, he wrote the famous play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and it was published in 1962. Who's Afraid of a Virginia Woolf उनका बहुत ही famous work है. His another famous works are The Zoo Story and The Delicate Balance. Our next important writer is Saul Bellow. His novels Herzog and The Adventures of a Ogimach are highly acclaimed. His another famous work is Humboldt's Gift. Our next important writer is Allen Ginsberg. Allen Ginsberg, he was a leading figure of the Beat generation and wrote the famous poem Howl. Our next important writer is Anne Sexton, and her important work is Live or Die. Live or Die. Next is Sylvia Plath. Her important works are Ariel and The Jail Bar. The Bell Jar. Next is Robert Lowell, and his important work is Life Studies. Our next important writer is Elizabeth Bishop, and her important work is North and South. Our next important writer is Wallace Stevens. Wallace Stevens. He contributed to American modernism through his poetry. His important work is Harmonium. So these are all important 42 important American literature writers. Friends, we hope this helps you in a UGC NET English exam preparation. Take some time to explore their works and discover the beauty of our American literary heritage. Thank you so much for watching this video. Bye.